What is your current assessment of the auto market right now?
We've seen default rates go from averaging of like 1 to 2%, doubling up to 3 to 4%, which doesn't seem like much in the scheme of things. That's why these Cox Automotive people don't say anything, but that's nearly double than what it used to be. So that's some of the alarms that I was raising over a year ago. And it's so funny because people thought I was nuts back then, and everybody laughed. And then all of a sudden, as this thing started crumbling, I just watched all these views like kind of grow on my channel. And a lot of the stuff I've been saying over and over again. And now it's the news videos that I recorded for like CNN, Fox News, and everything else. Now they're starting to play. So we're slowly starting to see some of this stuff come to fruition.
You mentioned 1 out of 4 folks are 30 days late, 1 out of 6 are 90 days late. Can you put those into context? Are those bad numbers from what we've seen over the past couple of years? Are they?
The banks control how many cars us dealers sell because they have the ultimate power. If they do not want to lend to consumers at 130, 140, 150% LTV like they normally do, this is going to be, I call it the credit noose, that's going to tighten around dealers' necks and is driving sales down. And it's already started. I talked about this about 6 months ago. Banks were cutting off like crazy financing, like 96-month financing on a brand new F-150 Silverado, 84 months, these crazy options. As banks are taking more losses, almost like the 2008 housing crisis, they come up with new rules, new regulations, whatever they can do to balance their books. And this is the thing that I don't know why dealers are not scared of, and people like Cox Automotive, because once the banks stop lending, which they're going down and they're only lending book, it's just going to crush companies like Cox Automotive, Sonic Auto Group, AutoNation, all these people stuck with really high overpriced inventory. And it blows my mind that I hear these people like, the market's fine. The market's fine. I literally feel like we're living in 2008 again. You got the 10% that are screaming from the hilltops, it's going to be bad. And then you have the 90% of the people like, it's fine. It's all sunshine and rainbows. It's not that bad.
Before we get to the dealers, let's get to the lenders. You deal with them on a daily basis, like you said. From what you've told me, I would think they would be beginning to freak out here. How much are the lenders freaking out at this point?
This is the first time in history that I've known of in 20 years that they stopped buying paper. Every bank that I deal with doesn't want to touch it. A lot of the bank managers I spoke to are upset. They're freaking out because their bonuses are structured on loans, getting new loans, and also the performance of them. They're talking about not getting bonuses for the next year or so. They're hiring more collection agent specialists because they have such a high default. And the sad thing is they're literally told, because I was going to get a few of these people on my channel to talk about how bad it is, because this is the stuff that I want to show the public. The public can't see unless you're in my position. And they were told flat out from multiple companies that they are not allowed to speak publicly about this situation, that it falls under the Fair Credit Act. We cannot share consumers' information because it's illegal. And so every time we try to get some sort of data from them so I can show people, they always hide behind it's consumer rights, it's consumer credit. We can't show you it because it's private information, which is absolute BS. It drives me nuts. But that's why I think these banks are so scared, because like you said, if everybody knew that the market was crumbling, it would drive the prices down even faster. So right now, I feel like they're trying to use this false hope and prerogative of like limited supply, there's not enough cars, propping up the market, praying to God that people don't start using their heads and just wait and watch how this basically facade crumbles.
It seemed like lending standards for auto loans just dropped down into the core of the earth. I mean, it was just like they would give a loan to anybody with a pulse who had a stimulus check to spend, right? Just like we did with housing. My concern is that like what we're going to see this time around, like this market cycle's subprime is going to be the auto market the way that the housing was back in 2008.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you hit a nail on the head. Is when we were starting to go in pandemic, we were buying cars back a book, operating the same principles. And then all of a sudden we started hearing multiple banks saying, hey, you know what? We're going to give you, instead of, let's say on a prime customer, we're going to give you 110% of LTV. So if the customer has good credit, they don't want to put no money down, we can cover sales tax and maybe a few bucks of aftermarket products, warranties, etc. They were going up to 150, 160%. So I was like, okay, maybe they're going a little extra because people just don't want to spend the money and they're stimulating sales. That's originally how we thought it was. They were just going out of the way to stimulate sales. But then all of a sudden they brought the subprime markets into it. People that we usually would lend 90% of LTV, giving them 130, 140, 150%.
The percentage of auto loans that defaulted on like the first payment was never made is like higher than it's ever been. Is that true?
Yeah, it hit record highs back in, I believe it was May of 2022, and then it's continuing the same pace. First, the banks had to do the forbearance to make the government happy so they can keep pumping the money out. But now they're trying to repo these cars. The forbearance are showing up, and a lot of these forbearance programs didn't show as negative payments on the credit history. So a lot of the stats that we talk about, like the 1 out of 4 that's up for repo, that's all from Experian.com. A lot of their numbers are skewed because they technically can't report how many people are truly late until the next following quarter. And
Oh
so
my goodness.
that's why I'm so excited to see after this first quarter, we're going to see the numbers for the last quarter of 2022, and I think it's going to be way worse than what people are thinking.
It's going to be way worse than even the numbers you mentioned to us at the beginning, because they can't include those forbearances until they actually become like defaults. And by a forbearance, these are people obviously trying to game the system in the way that you described. But when they get up forbearance, they can still drive the car, right?
They can drive the car. The government will basically tell whatever state they're in that they're not allowed to repo these vehicles. And so it completely caused a pause where traditionally that was part of the surge. Normally we get repos in every week and we just put them up for sale and we go to the auction and buy them and I sell them to new consumers. When they stopped that, and we're not talking regular banks, I have title loan companies, pawn shops, everybody, nobody could repo during this time. So that's why there was such another shortage of the market of used cars.
So you're going to have this squeeze between the banks approving less loans to buy stuff and fewer people showing up anyways to buy stuff. You're kind of smiling and smirking and nodding as I'm saying this. Are you seeing the same thing here?
So we're projecting they basically robbed at least 2 years of their future from the pandemic of, pushing all this overinflated inventory on these consumers. And like you said, it's going to be a drought for the next at least 18 months. And not only from a demand aspect, but also from a lending aspect, because as these banks take these massive losses, it's going to get harder and harder to lend. I mean, I've never seen banks do a 180 so fast, where before, as long as you had a pulse and like a 650 credit score, I get you whatever you want. Now they want to see the big down payments. They want to see, multiple bank statements that match pay stubs, that match previous auto loans. They're going back to very traditional rules, what they used to. So yeah, you said it best. I mean, they robbed the future, and there's going to be a really bad sales drought that's going to affect everybody.